Puget Sound. Once a pristine sanctuary for a myriad of marine life. From crustaceans to mollusks, salmon to killer whales. Now, Puget Sound is dominated by man and the ecological changes he brings. Yet, underneath the ubiquitous sand that covers much of this once pristine habitat, one bivalve has survived much of the onslaught of civilization. Indeed, some specimens are older than Seattle itself. The next 9 minutes will chronicle the story of two young men searching for a clam as vast and mysterious as the great Pacific Northwest itself. This is the story of the Geoduck. We're going clamming. Oh, wow. The Panopia generosa, or geoduck, is one of the largest clams in the world and is found exclusively along the west coast of the United States, northward into British Columbia. Some of the highest concentrations of geoducks in the world are found right here in Puget Sound. 108 million geoducks with a combined biomass of 159 million pounds reside here. Adult geoducks can reach 15 pounds and live to over 150 years, but most range from 1 to 3 pounds, and specimens older than 100 years are very rare. These clams have siphons that can reach 3 feet long, and they will bury themselves accordingly to escape predators. I grew up around the ocean, so I've been clamming, crabbing, and fishing my entire life. I've gone clamming all throughout Puget Sound, been crabbing through Puget Sound and British Columbia, and I've been fishing up and down the west coast from Alaska down to southern Washington for salmon, halibut, lingcod, rock cod, even a little bit of tuna mixed in there. Now, I've been thirsting about catching a geoduck since I was an infant, but I've only actually started catching them in the past couple years or so. We did our geoduck digging on Thursday, June 7th, 2012 at Cultus Bay on the southern tip of Whidbey Island. Cultus Bay is a very shallow bay and harbors all sorts of marine life. When it comes to big clams, Cultus Bay has 2 main species, geoducks and horse clams. It is important to be able to distinguish between the two just by looking at their siphons above the sand, and the ability to do this consistent is the mark of an advanced geoducker. Take a look at it. It does not have any hair on the front. It does not have that stiff kind of shell the horse clams have on the front. That's a geoduck clam. Here's a horse clam. You can see how it has the crust on the top. Not to mention, it squirts a lot. Sorry about that. That's fine. That'll be a good shot. Horse clams are even more abundant than geoducks in the intertidal plains of Cultus Bay. However, they don't taste nearly as good, and there is no commercial market for them and very little recreational pressure. They do make good clam chowder, though. It's a horse clam. To give you some comparison on how they compare to geoducks, I'm going to dig it up for you. You want to dig on the side of it so you don't crush the shell that it makes. So if you get a lot of sand in the clam, you generally just don't want to crush things. Feel its neck. You don't want to grab it by the neck though, because if you rip off the neck, it's hard to get to the shell, and you'll kill the clam. So you definitely don't want to rip off the neck. I feel like I'm getting close. There we go. There's your horse clam. That's a big one too. Isn't she a beauty? There we go. So now, let's go get ourselves a geoduck. As you saw, getting a horse clam is pretty straightforward. You dig a hole, grab a clam, and voila! Clam chowder for your girlfriend's parents. Getting a geoduck is not so easy. They're so deep that you actually need a special tube to prevent the sides of the hole you dig from collapsing. I also use a clam gun, which is a special tool that helps me excavate sand with startling speed and accuracy. First, I have this tube. Many geoduck clammers use a much bigger tube than this, but this is all I have at the time. I actually bought it at a hardware store. It's a stovepipe. It's 8x24. Now there's a whole bunch of sand in there. Some people use a shovel. This is a handy tool called a clam gun. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put it down in here, wiggle it, get as much sand as I can. It has a little hole right here, and I can press down that hole and it'll suck the sand right out. Look at all that. So you see the geoduck? That's where it is. I'm going to try and center this right around it. Hopefully I won't have to reposition the pipe. It's my trusty clam gun. Help get some of the sand out. And the tide is starting to come in. Pressure here. Oh yeah. Take a look at the tide. So I'm feeling another shell down here. Get rid of sand clam. Call them sand clams. Just the clams are filled with sand. It's not a species. Might as well be though, they're pretty annoying. The other thing about these clams, it's a common misconception. A lot of people think they dig down, they can't dig down, they're so suctioned in there that they don't really have anywhere to go. But their necks retract, they're not digging any deeper, their necks are really just that long. So now we're about 26 inches under or so. Let's see if I can get a little closer to the group. Careful here, I want to be delicate, I don't want to damage the neck. And I can almost feel the shell. I'm getting it. Oh my goodness. And there is your geoduck clam. That's a pretty typical digging experience for both clams. Horse clams are easy. Geoducks, not so much. Here's the geoduck. The horse clam took me about 30 seconds. The geoduck took me about 12 minutes. Now as you can see, the shells are roughly similar in size. The geoduck is a little bigger, mainly because this is one of the largest geoducks I've ever dug up. But take a look at the size of the meat. The horse clam can close its shell all the way. The geoduck can't. And actually, when a geoduck is full of water, you saw it when it first came out, it's a lot bigger. This whole thing is wide open. It can't even close its shell. Whoops, I just dropped the horse clam. But look at the size of the neck as well. Horse clams bury about 1 to 2 feet deep. This guy was about 3 feet. Maybe not quite 3 feet, but close. So this is, the geoduck has much more meat. It's very valuable. The geoduck is a delicacy in Asian countries and will often sell for as high as $100 a pound at specific auctions where people really like geoduck. What's more, most of them are found right here in Puget Sound. They don't occur in many other places in the world. In fact, Puget Sound has the largest stock of geoducks in the world. Although geoducks are plentiful now, they may not always be this way. As demand for geoducks has skyrocketed in recent decades, particularly in the aforementioned Asian food markets, commercial shellfishing and illegal poaching have decimated some populations around Puget Sound. And as more anthropogenic carbon dioxide is released into the atmosphere, the more acidic the ocean becomes, and the less dissolved carbonate it can hold. Geoducks and other bivalves need carbonate to calcify their calcium carbonate shells, and an environment with reduced carbonate could make it harder for these processes to occur. In the words of the great Ivor Haglund, keep clam and dig a geoduck today.
Dig a duck, dig a duck, dig a gooey duck, dig a duck, dig a gooey duck, dig a duck a day. Dig a duck, dig a duck, dig a gooey duck, dig a duck, dig a gooey duck, dig a duck a day. You can hear the diggers say as they're heading to the bay, oh, I gotta dig a duck a day, 'cause I get a buck a duck when I dig a duck a day. Gotta dig a duck a day. Dig a duck, dig a duck, dig a gooey duck, dig a duck, dig a gooey duck, dig a duck a day. Dig a duck, dig a duck, dig a gooey duck, dig a duck, dig a gooey duck, dig a duck a day. Well, it takes a lot of luck and a certain kind of pluck for to dig around the muck just to get a gooey duck. He hasn't got a front, he hasn't got a back, he doesn't know.